Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar presented by edweb.net and sponsored by CodaZ by Intelitech. My name is Graham Salim. I am with the CodaZ team here at Intelitech, and we're excited today to host with us Dr. Todd Ensign and Stephanie Oster, who are going to be discussing on this webinar, Competition in Education Supports Computational Thinking. So let me just talk about edWeb. It's a free online community for this edWebinar, and we encourage you to join this edweb.net community of CompSci. As a member of the community, you'll get all these resources. You'll be able to view and share the recording of this webinar. You'll be able to take the CE quiz, the continuing education quiz at the end. You'll be able to download the slides and the chat log, join the discussions, and you will get invitations to upcoming webinars on similar topics. So we highly encourage you to sign up and join the edWeb community. It's a dynamic and vibrant community that we benefit from a lot, and we would like to see all of you on there and share it with your friends. The webinar today is presented by two esteemed educators, people that I take my hat off to. I'm a business person and haven't done a tenth of what these two people have done. Dr. Todd Ensign, who is the Program Manager of Educational Resource Center at NASA's Katherine Johnson IVNV facility in Fairmont, West Virginia. Todd's been involved in robotics, and I'm going to let him talk about what he's done, because he just doesn't give credit to all that he has done. He's an active member in the robotics and the STEM community in the state of West Virginia. We've been working with him for a number of years, and it's been an absolute pleasure. He's a very energetic guy, and he's also a very interesting guy to listen to. So I'm sure Todd will add a lot. Stephanie is a super teacher. Stephanie is a middle school science department chairperson and a life science and marine biology teacher at the Benjamin School in North Palm Beach, Florida. Nice, warm location. She has a master's in STEM education, and her insights into this whole area of STEM are valuable, and I'm sure you will benefit and learn a lot from them. Today they're going to talk about competition and how they've used competition in teaching computational thinking and in participating in their classrooms and or in their districts. The competition that they'll mention a bit is CRCC, the Cyber Robotics Coding Competition, and that's where I come in. We're the organizers and sponsors of the Cyber Robotics Coding Competition. The company CodaZ and a nonprofit organization called ISEF, and that's how we got to know each other. They've been involved in the Cyber Robotics Coding Competition, and I met them through that, and then we set up the opportunity to talk on this webinar. So without spending too much time on that, I'm going to pass on and hand off to Todd, who's going to kick off by talking about giving us some background as to what is educational robotics, and I'll take a step back and let them do all the talking.
So I want to begin by starting with a couple of terms we're going to use throughout the presentation. When we talk about robotics in the educational settings, we refer to it as educational robotics. And the foundation of educational robotics really comes from educational theory. I'm sure most people are familiar with constructivism and Piaget. The students create their own knowledge through actions, and that learning is more meaningful and retained longer. Seymour Papert spent several years in Switzerland studying under Piaget and learning from him. He came away from that experience back to the MIT Media Lab with a solid foundation, but also a feeling that there should be one more aspect to constructionism, and that is a performance, a demonstration of knowledge. And he called that educational theory constructionism versus constructivism. So there's a V in the end. It's a small letter, but what it really comes down to is that in order for students to fully appreciate the learning experience they had, they should then, in a sense, present it or reshare it in a public forum. The ultimate example of constructionism would be a robotics competition. And in fact, the same year that the Lego Foundation partnered with the MIT Media Lab, the Lego organization partnered with MIT Media Lab to create the very first Lego robot, the RCX, was the year that FIRST, an organization called For Inspiration and Recognition of Science Technology, launched the first Lego League competition. So not only is there some relationship between robotics and education, but really the genesis of the very first broadly commercially available platform, came from educational theory, and it was referred to as the Mindstorms platform because that was the title of Seymour Papert's seminal work. Graham mentioned that I have some experience working with competitive robotics programs. In fact, 9 years ago, I was asked if my education team at the NASA facility in Fairmont could coordinate the first Lego League competition. Shortly thereafter, we started managing the Lego League Junior, the first Tech Challenge, and we support and work with the FRC teams in our state as well. We got involved with the VRC or VEX robotics competition. We added a VEX University tournament, and most recently we added the VEX IQ platform, which is the fastest growing physical robot platform in our region, and it's taking off around the world as well. In addition, we work with our CTE schools, our career and technical education schools, and support several of their competitions that they have in robotics, mobile robotics and urban search and rescue, which are run at the Skills USA competition, and the human robot interaction. MIT has a partnership with NASA to run a virtual robotics platform, not unlike the CRCC platform of Coder Z. But the final event, the championship event, takes place aboard the International Space Station with the spheres. The referees are actually astronauts. We also coordinate the WRO, World Robot Olympiad, an initiative that began in Singapore and has spread throughout the world, most recently actually adding the United States only 4 years ago. But in West Virginia, the program that is literally changing the way we talk about and the way we interact with students in a competitive robotics forum is the Cyber Robotics Coding Competition. So I'm wondering, do your students participate in any robot competitions or programs? So it looks like over half do not. A little less than 40% do robotics. So that's interesting to see that a number of you are participating in robotics competitions. And I just wanted to try and emphasize the impact that CRCC has had relative to all the other programs that I'm managing. And there are more programs than this that run in the US and around the world. But First Lego League is a major program that we manage here. Lego League Junior has grown a lot. Our EDR program and our IQ programs are expanding. But that last 2 years, you can see that light blue bar is where CRCC changed the entire paradigm by engaging each student individually in a self-paced format where they're able to log on without the necessity of having to purchase a, $200 to $1,000 robot or even more, and having to meet in a laboratory and having to have travel expenses. It really freed up this concept to make it more available to students that otherwise wouldn't be able to participate.
Just to add to that, before we go on, last year in Florida, if I'm not mistaken, we were one of the only teams in Florida represented with CRCC. And within an 8-month time period this year, we were one of 8 or 9. So CRCC is definitely an awesome platform and taking off. So.
Exactly, Stephanie. And the unique part is that every student gets a login. So if a school signs up or a group signs up, it's not just 10 students in that school. It could be 100 students or 200 students in an individual school. And that's why in a very small and rural state, a population of our whole state's almost equivalent to that of the greater Pittsburgh area, we doubled participation in competitive robotics. So the title of the presentation relates to computational thinking. And when we discussed the presentation, we talked about what are things that are both relevant and maybe not as well known to educators that could be attending. And this is a relatively new approach in terms of integrating this concept into education. It's being researched and explored by Carnegie Mellon University almost initially. And now the International Society for Technology and Education is probably the largest proponent of inclusiveness of computational thinking in learning. But what is it really? So as our society evolves, as technology takes a greater and greater role, we're going to see self-driving cars. We're going to have issues with climate change, but we have literally, so much data that we have to figure out how to analyze it. And to address these problems that we're facing, our students are going to have to learn to look at a problem from a perspective that data can be analyzed, that coding can be leveraged, that computers can be involved. And so just as an example, these are little pictures of my son down below. And one day my son, when he was 2, he started playing with robots. He's, I think, 5, 6, and 7, these different pictures here. He said, hey, Dad, I don't have my cat with me while I'm visiting my grandparents. So he pulled out his Lego WeDo kit and custom built a cat and coded it. So the sensor would activate when he petted it and it would wag its tail and meow. Another day we came home and he was coughing a lot and sick. I said, you got to wash your hands. He said, but Dad, it'd be so much more fun if I had my very own soap dispensing robot. And so he created this Lego robot that uses a sensor and will spit soap out at him, which definitely helped entice him to washing his hands. And another day he said, well, Dad, we're going to be traveling, and so who's going to feed the cat? And he didn't trust that my friend was going to come over, so we spent the rest of the day designing a automatic cat feeder that uses both timing and also a little Pavlovian activator here. So Ian truly is already looking at problems and analyzing them from the standpoint of how can a computer, how can a thought processing agent, information processing agent help us? How can we use data and how can we use coding to solve that? So the importance of this is pretty relevant because students are going to have to know how to take advantage of all the changes that are occurring in order to be successful both in their own careers as well as to help our society address issues that we're facing.
Okay, so my objective today is to share with you just how I added competition into the classroom. And if you were to ask me a year ago, 2 years ago, if this was even possible or even a thought, I would have said no. I would have balked at the idea. But the past 16 months and adding this into a non-computer science classroom has actually changed everything. So what I like to do is I want to start with the why. And the why is so important. You need to start with it. It's a simple question, but it has many complexities to it. So why are we in this profession? Why are we here? And why are we doing the things that we do? And we're doing it because we are in the position to help children grow to be respectful, productive young adults. That's ultimately what we're doing. And, we want these young adults to be leaders and not just to solve, to find problems, but we want them to solve the problems, look for them ahead of time, to be active participants in making change. So our goal as an educator is to provide these tools for the young adults to be productive learners and to be team players, to work together, to make our community a better place. So that was the why behind my institution bringing coding into the classroom, into the middle school.
Back to the why do we want to utilize robotics in and STEM, really broadly speaking, in our educational environment? And the answers can be explained, in my mind, in three key areas. The simple economics of it. So STEM jobs pay more than non-STEM jobs. And from a U.S. perspective, we're losing ground to other countries. So a little ethnocentric there, given our international audience. But that's definitely something that drives some of the domestic need and demand. Equity. So the field with the least amount of female involvement is the computer sciences. Females are gaining ground in other areas of science and technology, but in computer science, they're still far behind. And so I feel that integration of these STEM competitions can prove to females at a young age that they have the ability and the experience to be successful in these fields before they have a preconceived notion that this is maybe not the kind of field for women.
You know, and to jump in right here, at the beginning of our school year and the beginning of our coding program, most of my girl students were, no, I don't want to, I can't, I'd rather not. And once we got going and we got into it, we actually have an all-girl coding team going to state finals this year. So it's definitely something that needs to be enhanced and brought into, and part of that why.
And the third reason as to why is education, and we could tease out any different country here in this study, but we can see here the United States is barely hitting the mean of the different tests in reading, science, and math. And our lowest area is actually in mathematics relative to the average. So 18 science and 37 mathematics and 65 nations in an international study. So these are some of the whys that's important for us to integrate STEM and computational thinking through competitive robotics in our classrooms.
Okay, so let's talk about in the classroom, okay, that impromptu student-driven instruction. So some people think that unstructured learning, especially in that middle school, upper school level, is just play. And it really, truly, it never is just play. So one of the hardest things as a middle school teacher, I mean, we're looking at 12, 13, 14-year-olds, is to give up some of that structured routine of the classroom. You know, order and routine, minimize chaos. But yet when it came to coding in the classroom, I wanted it to be different. I wanted to have that, I wanted to be special, and I wanted the students to have that ownership in the classroom. So I did the unthinkable, and I asked them, you know, how do you see the classroom set up? Where do you want to sit? You know, how do you want to set this up so that it's a fun day? And, you know, set up an unstructured environment, a semi-unstructured environment with a very structured project material, the coding itself. And I did it, and I am so glad that I did this because they bought into it. So if you actually look, if you look at this picture, if you look deep in to the right-hand side, the teacher desk is being owned by a 13-year-old. And she took it upon herself and said, you know, Mrs. Oster, is it okay if I teach to my peers some of the ins and outs of the coding, because I think it would help us as a team? And absolutely, take it. And that's what you're seeing. The kids rolled up, they moved their chairs around. There's some were on the floor, some were on the counter. But they were so intent in listening to what she had to say and what she had to offer them that it was hard to give up that part of my classroom. But then again, I'm so proud that it became our classroom. And I think that's an important component when you're adding this into your program, because they need that ownership to make this work. So let's talk about the dynamic of coding in that non-computer classroom. So here's my room. I'm truly a science teacher. We had the fish tanks, the aquaponics, we have it all going. And when it comes to coding day, we move the chairs, we go together as a group. But I started the whole process with the number one rule, and that was honesty. I was very, very honest with my students and said, this is new to me. I've never done this. I don't know what we're doing, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to post my screen live on the front of the board, and we're going to code together, and we're going to learn it together. So, and they love the fact that there I was, having my robot programmed and bumping into the walls and collecting all the wrong points. And, but it became a nice interaction. They were like, no, Mrs. Oster, change this or do that. And it just tightened up our little community. So you have to embrace the opportunity. Embrace the opportunity to let them be and be a part of the class, be a part of the learning. And when they're part of that process, it then has such meaning to them, and they want it even more. Okay. So how did I do it? Or how would you do it? All you need is one teacher and have that commitment. Because one teacher in one class will so rapidly grow into 2 and 4. And next thing you know, it's the whole grade. And before you know it, it's the whole school. So, you just need one. So that's all it takes. Matter of fact, during a staff meeting, right when we first started coding in our school, one of the teachers said, by the way, the kids have their computers out during study hall, and it looks like they're coding in these games, and they're having fun. Is this right? And they questioned it. And I was like, yes, that's what it is. They're actually having fun, and they wanted to do it, and they were taking the time. So you just need that one commitment, and then your students will follow. The second thing that is so important is you have to make it meaningful. If it's not meaningful on their level, on the level of whatever grade you're teaching, it won't matter. So if you don't have that meaning for them and they can't relate it to, what's going on around them, then there's no purpose to it. So some of the things that I do is I'll show a 5 or 7 minute video of how is coding in our everyday world. The non, we're looking at tools and gadgets and, just even their phone and different things where coding is involved. And they're coming to realize that it is in their everyday. One of the other things that I did to make it meaningful was we came up with a fun name. So, our mascot is a buccaneer, but when we code, we're the binary bucks. And they just really like that, taking on that special name. And of course, the last thing is celebrating those small achievements. It can be overwhelming to have a new program. But if you take it in small strides, you know what? We're going to celebrate. We all logged in. Celebrate it. Laugh about it. Let's get through 1 or 2 missions. Let's just do little pieces at a time. Or, we even celebrated things of if you need help, ask for help. If you know something and you can share it with somebody, then share it. And those are small achievements when you're bringing peers together to help each other and work together instead of compete against each other. So that was definitely a purpose for us. A big mantra: no one codes alone. No, we all know one of the things in school is you do your own work and you do you. And when it came to coding, this was something that I also tried was, no, nobody codes alone. It's just all new to all of us. So let's work through this together. Let's do this together. And that gave student empowerment. That promoted that peer-to-peer assistance. And it changed our community. It changed our community as a school. It changed our community in our individual classrooms. And CRCC provided the platform for our school to really excel in academic sportsmanship. What we help each other, and we take pride in helping each other. So academic sportsmanship was major thing for us with this platform. So what we're looking at here, last year, we were so proud and so surprised. We brought CRCC platform into our school, and our students they jumped on board, and I just went full out. We did it in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So we had our entire population, and what we did was in our science classrooms, we literally took 20 minutes a week, half an hour a week away, and added our coding into our science program. And with that, and with the sense of community, and with that ownership from the students, we were just so proud that we actually went and made it to our first competition. Now, here's the special part about CRCC. It is virtual. So here we are sitting in the classroom, and we're seeing states from Alabama and Mississippi and Virginia, and we're looking at all their scores and their schools, and it keeps a tally, and it just kept that motivation going. And we went in it for fun, and we were invited to go to finals. We scored really well. We were invited to go to finals. We raised the funds, and we flew ourselves up from Florida to Virginia. And our little pep talk was just go in there, have fun. We're proud of you. Do the best you can do. And no matter what the outcome is, we're going for milkshakes and French fries. Like that's it. We just want you to go in, have fun, and just do what you can do. And here's the picture of us coming back with our first place position from the South Atlantic champions. So my point with this is it is doable. It's really, really doable. You just need that one person to commit. Todd, I think you have a picture here too.
I do, and even a precursor in the first year we ran the program. One of the exciting things that happened is that every school has those small achievements when they can see a student's name move up the leaderboard. And so CRCC is always constantly providing that reinforcement that if I stayed up a little bit after after school, and I worked on another mission, I was able to get another point. And ultimately, the goal was that the top 2 students in each participating school would come to our live finals event, which we describe as a hackathon. I run all these robotics competitions that are physical robots, and they have fields and tables and pieces and manipulatives, and this is going to be in the computer labs, which didn't seem as dynamic, but it was amazing. The students were as excited, they were as engaged, they were high-fiving. It was definitely a palpable sense of excitement. So again, that reinforcement is continually going through the crowd. But in the first year, we had a teacher come up to me and say, "You did something amazing that was really, really helpful." I was able to take the top 4 students from each school because we had extra space in that first year. And so she shared with me that the top 2 students in her school in Southern West Virginia were 2 boys from well-off families that loved technology and were really engaged in this. But the next 2 students were 2 females who came from a much more challenging background. They didn't have computers at home. They didn't have a lot of support, and they were coming in before school, during lunch, and staying as late as they could to work on this. And they had gotten themselves from the bottom all up to places 3 and 4. And so they were able to come to the event as well. And I remember talking with them, and they were so excited about that opportunity. One thing that I did just personally in West Virginia is I created a giant traveling trophy because I know that moment's so special. And so the kids are so excited when their first place team be able to take this giant trophy home that's bigger than any football trophy in their case, and able to show their school and be proud of the work that they did in this, what we can call a sport of the mind.
This is Graham. We've got 100 stories like the stories that Todd and Stephanie have told. A school in Texas that drove 8 hours to get to the finals because they were so excited. It was the first time that their school had ever taken part in a competition and was ever able to actually make it through to the finals. We had a school in New Jersey show up. The entire class came to support the 2 students that were participating in the finals. So the sense of achievement is much greater because the whole class participates. It's not a small group of students who are participating in a physical robotics competition. The whole class gets involved, the whole school gets involved, and then the support from both the friends in class, the teachers, the parents, Just, I was at a finals last week in California, and there were just as many parents watching the competition take place as the students. It's kind of difficult maybe for some of you to understand it. So I think on the next slide we have a video that, it's a short video that kind of tells you a bit about what CRCC is and shows some pictures. And I think after that you'll be in a much better position to understand.
What is the Cyber Robotics coding competition?
It's about really engaging in the challenges that we're putting at the kids.
It's like a video game, but it's still more fun and gives me a challenge to do.
It's just a nice way to add in coding in a fun competition way that all students were able to participate in.
Just because it helps me understand more about coding my own robot.
It was really awesome.
It's friends working together, coding an actual robot.
It is a lot of fun.
The Cyber Robotics Coding Competition is an online competition where students from all over the world explore the world of STEM in a fun and exciting way using 3D virtual robots. CRCC uses a gamified, level-based approach to keep students engaged. The competition is easy to implement and flexible. All you need to get started is a computer and a browser. During the 6 to 8 week program, students are immersed in STEM and computer science as they learn to program robots and take part in fun and exciting mission simulations. The competitive and friendly environment helps develop 21st century skills such as problem solving, computational thinking, communication, collaboration, and teamwork. The inclusive and equitable nature of CRCC breaks down diversity and gender barriers. Nearly half of the competitors are girls. More than 1/3 of participating schools are rural, and in 2018, 38% of competitors were from schools without computer science classes. CRCC is easy and fun for teachers as well. The program needs no special training, hardware, or software, and includes instructions so teachers with or without STEM experience can mentor a CRCC team. During the first season alone, over 100,000 students across the globe enjoyed this exciting tournament and were given access to the amazing world of STEM. Shift your school's approach to STEM. Join the upcoming season of the Cyber Robotics Coding Competition today.
Okay, so one of the things that that came up when we first started, and I'm sure any teacher out there, when you introduce something new, what's the first thing you hear? I can't. I'm not good at this. It's so boring. I don't understand this. I'll do it, but only for the grade. I mean, we've heard all these excuses. But when you reply with, oh, but you can, let me show you. Let's do it together. The reality of the final comments are, hey, I'm actually good at this. It was challenging but doable, and I really liked it. And that says a lot. Matter of fact, at one point, the CRCC format, one of the persons there actually contacted me and mentioned that our children weren't coding, I guess they had 30 missions, and we were coding them out of order. And they asked, why were we doing that? And I said, well, we've taught our students to read the test first. So when they broke into their mini teams, they came up with the strategy of, I'm going to look at all of them and let's figure out which ones we can do right away, which ones we need to work on together. And, so they came up with their own strategy, which is what we're trying to teach them. We want them to look for problems, and we want them to solve those problems. And we want them to use the tools that we're giving them. And I just couldn't have been more proud of our team for literally coming up with that. And I think part of it was because I did give them that freedom and ownership in the classroom. And they used it, and they benefited from it. It was really, really good. Okay, so to review some of the things that we've discussed today. Unstructured versus structured environment, redefining the normal, getting out of your comfort zone as an educator in the classroom, and relinquishing, and not even relinquishing, it's just changing the dynamic to that it's more of our space and letting your students have a little more say into that classroom.
It's important to make it meaningful. And I think that's one of the powerful parts of competition. I personally am like the least competitive person. I don't watch or play any professional sports. I just find competition stressful. And when I got involved in competitive robotics, I thought I'm not going to really like this because I don't like that stress. But what I've learned by watching now thousands of kids compete is that it is a real motivating factor. It makes it meaningful for them when they know that they're going to have to go stand before a panel of judges or present, or they're going to have to compete head to head and represent their school. Those things all help make it meaningful to them. And I think that it's important to relate what they're doing to their future as well.
You know, and there's something to be said for healthy competition. You know, it has never and was never presented about the winning. We didn't go in there to win. We went in there to code, to not code alone, to be a part of a team. It gave the competition itself gave a lot of students who normally wouldn't be shining. You know, they're not the number one person on the baseball team or football team or big on the sports. It's coding. It's kind of an odd thing, you know, an odd sport, so to speak. But when I tell you the pride that these students have and the admiration that their peers have with each other because it became that healthy coding, it's just heartwarming. You know, and of course, always reward them with the positives. You know, great job. You've obviously worked hard. We didn't make the code, we didn't figure it out, but we can still do it together, and you keep it positive.
I think competitive robotics lends itself very much to the healthy competition example that Stephanie was making earlier. In fact, First Robotics co-founder Woody Flowers, who recently passed away, I was fortunate enough to actually be a personal friend of his. He coined a phrase called co-opetition. You can compete, but while also cooperating with one another. And I think that is something that competitive lends itself to. We encourage students to enjoy the competition, but also to see the benefit in supporting each other through that process, because in the end, we're all learning and we're all benefiting.
I think we have one last poll here. We just want to find out if anybody on the call has in fact heard of or taken part in the cyber robotics coding competition. We've got about 30% of people who've heard of it, about 10% that have participated, and about half who've never heard of it, and a good number who are interested in hearing about it. So that's great. Thank you. Okay, so I just take a couple of minutes. We've talked a lot about the use of CoderZ in this, and I just want to put the context so that everybody understands what we've done with CoderZ. CoderZ is a learning platform. It's a tool that allows the students to code on using simplified block coding, and at the same time see in real time what they've coded on a virtual simulated robot. And the advantage of that is that they get that immediate feedback, but the most important part of this is that it's all cloud-based, digital, using graphic emulation. So the robot itself is not a physical robot. You don't have to buy any hardware. Any student who has a login to a browser can actually take part in this. Now, CRCC, the competition, the Cyber Robotic Coding Competition, uses the coding platform, the learning platform, to run these competitions. So in the end, what we have is problem-based learning. The students are taught something and then given a challenge or put into a competition situation, which is made up of a series of challenges which start off fairly simple and get a little bit more complex as time goes on. They get to learn different aspects of programming, computational logic, independent thinking. They have to resolve these problems in order to win the competition. What is fantastic about CoderZ and CRCC, as Todd and Stephanie have mentioned, is that it provides access to all students. We have succeeded to penetrate schools that are urban, rural, small schools, large schools, home schools, schools all around the world. And essentially what we've done is we've taken robotics, which, as Todd mentioned, is a fantastic way to teach STEM. It introduces so many different aspects of different topics, not just engineering. It's science, it's technology, it's engineering, it's math, it's the soft skills of teamwork. It's many different aspects of different opportunities for careers, but it does it in a way that it can get to all students in a much more affordable way than physical robotics programs. And that scalability to allow students to do it in the classroom, in the library, at home, on the bus when they're driving home, it really is a foundation and springboard into more complex computer science and other applications. There is a side to it that it's a great way to introduce it. There's a side to it that it introduces students that may never have had an opportunity to learn coding or learn about technology to get involved in this and to see what it is. So like I said, it's made up of two components. There's the learning tool, which is the platform that we use. It's got a coding capability on the left, and you've got the simulation on the right, and it ties in very tightly with curriculum that we provide that helps the educator, the teacher, take students through that. And then there's the competition part, which students first compete completely virtually in their classrooms, in their school environment, and then progress. And if they make it up the leaderboard, they get invited to the state or regional finals that take place in different universities and centers around the country and around the world. Again, I like this picture just because it kind of shows the whole thing. You can see here the simulation of the robot, and you can see that we have data. So there is information that the students can see what different sensors are showing, what speed the robot's moving, which direction it's moving, what color it's seeing, and based on that, they can now go back and write code. So in this specific picture on the right, you can see the robot seeing black. The student could write the code that says, when the color sensor sees black, turn left. They could also do it just by saying, go forward 2 seconds and then turn left. But the students get to write code and understand the concepts of computational programming, even if they're not going to be coders. They may not turn out to be engineers. They may not turn out to be software engineers specifically, but whatever career they're going to go into, they're going to have a touch onto technology, and understanding how this technology works is going to help them. So it's an equitable, scalable, easy-to-use platform that Todd and Stephanie have explained how they've used it in their classroom. I'm going to move over to the questions and answers because there are a few, and I'm going to try and moderate those and see if I can answer them. Okay, I apologize, Stephanie and Todd, but at this point, most of the questions are about Coda Z. So the first one was, is CRCC GDPR compliant? And the answer is yes. There was a question about, is this in the USA? The competitions are typically organized regionally. And so we set them up in different countries or different regions or different school systems based on demand or some sort of a partnership with an organization. We've run this in a number of countries in Africa. We have run this in Vietnam. We've run this in Israel, Paraguay, and right now we're just coming to the end of the 3rd season of the US competition, which Stephanie mentioned that there's finals coming up. It does cost money to participate. I don't want to go into too much detail. You can find it on our website. The cost of participation in comparison with physical robotics competitions, which require both equipment and travel, is almost non-existent.
And Graham, if I may, this year we had the in-school finals. So you could, we had the ability to actually do a final within our own community without leaving. So it was a wonderful feature.
Yeah, so what we did was the students qualify, or school qualifies based on the total scores of the classes and the school, but then the school can have their own finals, and that allows them to just have an event or even use the finals to select which students will represent the school at the finals. There's a question about the age group. Currently, the age group of the competition is middle school. We do have the program CoderZ itself can extend from elementary through to high school, and we have some new features coming out that will focus on text-based coding, which will be more focused at high school level, and so the span of the competition will expand in the future as well. Can you use CoderZ on Chromebooks? The answer is yes. The Chromebooks can be used just as long as they have enough memory and they're not very old. They should work fine. Okay, so that was all the questions. Any final words from you guys before we start wrapping up?
From the perspective of a coordinator who implements many robotics programs, I'm so excited at what CRCC brings to our portfolio. It helps us engage students that we otherwise wouldn't be able to reach because of the limitations that Graham mentioned before. I mean, in the US, this could cost about $1 a kid to participate if the whole school was engaged, you know, compared to typically much higher costs, and just the physical barriers really limit my ability to reach all the students that I want to. And so that's why CRCC is so exciting here in our rural state.
And I'd just like to put out there, you know, take the challenge, be that teacher to commit, and see where your students will take you, because you will be very, very surprised, very pleased.
Thanks. So I really want to thank everyone for attending. I especially need to thank Todd and Stephanie for their effort in making this a successful webinar and informative. You have their contact details here. Feel free to contact any of us. We would love to talk to you more and provide you with more information. If you want to learn more about CoderZ, you can go to gocoderz.com and you'll find their contact us form as well as a free trial, which gives you an opportunity to try it. Thank everyone and encourage everyone to join the edweb.net community. There's the edweb.net community will allow you to get these resources from the recording, download the slides, join any discussions, and then if you have any questions, feel free to go to gocoderz.com, email me, gceline@isetfoundation.org. You can contact our competition master, Trevor Pope, and you can talk to us if you need. There's a name here for contact us if you're interested in talking about implementing CoderZ or CRCC in your classroom. We really appreciate your time. Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of the week.